All right, peeps, welcome in here. It is another day, another dollar, as they say. It is now, can't believe it, T-minus 1 day left until January's gone. February is just around the corner. And, yeah, we're getting really, really into the meat of the matter here when it comes to college hoops. It is another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It is powered by WagerTalk.com. I am joined, as always, by Ralph Michaels at WagerTalk, and we welcome in our good friend Drew Martin at SportsMemo.com, and it is all about college hoops here, guys. And what a card here tonight. Over 60 games on the board tonight that we're getting ready for. Going to be another huge weekend. But we had an interesting night last night, Ralph, as far as our upsets of the day. And let's face it, it wasn't a loaded card, but there were certainly a few teams here or there that made their presence known. Hopefully you guys were all on the right side of them there, Ralph, but definitely a couple of upsets worth mentioning, including South Carolina taking it to Arkansas.
Yeah, I follow the SoCon closely, and Mercer beating East Tennessee State is baffling to me. I mean, beating East Tennessee State at home by 16 points. Well, why did that happen? Mercer shot 74% from two-point land. They were 23 of 31, and that's because they had 37 rebounds against 25. So I didn't watch the game, but it certainly looked like they out-hustled East Tennessee State. You know, and East Tennessee State came in 18-3 in the conference. They led the SoCon. They were ahead of Furman and Greensboro. So it may only have been a 14.5-point dog that won that game, but it was baffling to me.
Yeah, no, it was a little crazy last night. I know we talked about Houston Baptist here on the show, and we're talking, anytime we talk Houston Baptist, we talk about zero defense, 9,000 points. But it was funny, Ralph, you even talked about it. They're on the wrong page here. They're usually on the ATS page, but they're on the upset page. I don't even think we realized this yesterday.
Yeah, again, you know, when you're a team that's 1-16, and your only win was at home against Central Arkansas in overtime, there are times that you cannot lay points with a very bad team, and Houston Baptist is as bad as they get. Yeah, I will be happy to tell you though, they moved up in effective field goal percentage, Joe.
No.
They were 353. They're now 352.
Oh, well, that's it. I can't bet them anymore. That's it. It's out of the question. There's no way I'm backing Houston Baptist. They're way too high on the rating scale for us. And Drew, last night, what did you were you playing anything? What'd you have going on last night in college hoops?
Yeah, I had some action going. Let's see here. We have Wednesday night. Won the Vandy Kentucky under. It was actually pretty close. I had the under of about 141, I believe, and luckily Vanderbilt didn't have a field goal in the last 5 minutes. Went 0 for 8 from the field, and that stayed under the total. Was very much in doubt. And then late night action, I had two 3% plays there, and unfortunately, the late night degenerate special, Joe, went down in flames on the last basket of the game, San Diego State. And something we can take away from this one, talking about San Diego State here, 22-0, the only undefeated team in college basketball, going up against New Mexico. I had the under in that one. It landed at 142. I believe I had the under of 141, so that last basket really, really hurt me, Joe. But one thing I did take away in betting San Diego State going forward, when they got a commanding lead, they're not giving up, and that's something that I've taken into kind of my college basketball totals handicapping that I don't believe odds makers, a lot of handicappers out there really factor in, is how teams play tempo-wise when they're up 20, when they're up 30 points in a game. And if you can really kind of pinpoint a team and how they're playing, I think you can use it to your advantage. And something I'm taking away is the Aztecs, when they're up, they're not quitting. They're not just sitting on the ball. They're still scoring. So I took the loss, but at least I'm thinking that I learned something on the Aztecs going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting, Rob. We talked about San Diego State yesterday on the show. Would they still be undefeated? We thought they'd be undefeated, but you know, we weren't sure, and I know you've been big on New Mexico. Certainly to start the year, you were a big New Mexico fan, and unfortunately, it just they were down. It was like 20-6 early on in the game, and they just never stopped San Diego State. Home or away, you know, Drew's got a point, man. They don't take their foot off the gas.
Yeah, they are clearly a top 10 team, in my mind right now. And, you have Malachi Flynn leading the way. And, when you have that type of point guard who is that good and control the tempo, one note I'll add to Drew's point, when you have San Diego State, obviously to be 22-0, you've had good health. They've had 4 players start all 21 games, and 2 guys split the other games. But what's so important is because they've had so many big leads that they have continuity. A lot of times you're mixing and matching lines. San Diego State's almost like hockey. You have waves. They have their 5 starters, and then their 5 backups come in. And that's what makes them such a powerful team. When that second string comes in, any unit that plays together and becomes cohesive is a powerful, powerful tool. And Drew, talk about a bad beat for you. San Diego State only topped 85 points in one other game against a D1 foe. That was back November 13th when they had 86 against Grand Canyon.
Yeah, and Ralph, it was funny because they just kept scoring down the end. I'm like, man, I picked this game just right. The pace isn't really there, but they didn't let off the gas like Joe said. And guys, I'll tell you this, looking at San Diego State's future schedule here, I mean, they do got Utah State, maybe, something in the Mountain West tournament. In my opinion, if I had to pick, are they going to be undefeated or are they not going into March Madness? I think they're going to run the table here, guys. I think they're going to be undefeated going into March Madness.
Yeah, I don't know.
Boise's playing well. They go to Boise on Sunday, February 16th.
Yep.
And, that's the game that I think. And Utah State's actually playing a lot better now, but the Aztecs do host Utah State coming up Saturday.
Yeah. Boise State last night did the old San Jose State. It's been nice, your upset wins and your covers, but you can kiss our ass because we ain't tolerating that. Boise State actually runs them over there last night. They did a really good job on it. But there was a couple of other games that were interesting, Ralph. The Pac-10, we talked about Penn State, Indiana, guys, and Penn State last night at home. Would Indiana be able to, Indiana be able to do what they've done pretty well at home themselves, only on the road? But this game was you talk about totals, Drew. This game was this was almost 30 points under the total there. It was just it was a little too much, too fast there for Indiana there, Ralph, when it was all said and done on the road.
Well, Penn State is such a difficult place to play at. All the other Big Ten teams, Columbus, Minneapolis, Rutgers, you're flying into a big airport. You're busing right there. Getting to State College using the University Park is a pain in the ass. And then it's such a unique setting, and the fans are right on you. And even though they hold 15,000, it doesn't seem like a big arena compared to some of those others. It's not like that multi-purpose like where the Buckeyes play. So Penn State to me is another team that I think I read somewhere, I think it was 60 years since both Penn State and Rutgers made the tournament. So they're both clearly in possession to do that.
It's certainly one of those, it's a throwback year, that is for sure. Also last night, bit of a head scratcher. Not really, though, but Texas Tech bounces back after that disappointing loss to Kentucky there in the end, where they just kind of gave it up, really. They had West Virginia coming into town, weren't sure how they were going to respond, but Drew, I'm looking at this game, and Ralph and I talked about it yesterday. Texas Tech, West Virginia. We were expecting less points, not more points. They cleared it by 37 in that game last night. So big offensive output by Texas Tech and West Virginia in that matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at this one, 75 possessions. I would have never, pictured that. I would have been on the wrong side of that one. Glad I stayed away. But you're right. What Chris Beard's been able to do with Texas Tech over the last couple of years has been very impressive. And they did drop 2 games in a row, I believe, with TCU and then back at it with Kentucky. I mean, that Kentucky loss, I kind of give him a pass. I think Kentucky's a little bit underrated in the betting markets. But going forward, maybe a little bit of something, with Texas Tech, like Ralph was just saying about College Station. Lubbock, Texas there in West Texas can kind of be a tough place to travel into. So with Texas Tech at home, I'm not usually looking to bet against them, the Red Raiders in Lubbock.
Yeah.
The one thing I took away from that Texas Tech game, They scored, 89 points. And they only had 6 players score.
Yep.
All 6 players scored between 15 and 28 points. Yep. So, you're looking at a team where you have to give the all-out effort because it was a must-win game. And, you basically played only 6 people. So when you have the short game following the long game in the week, you're going to play with normally 5 days rest and then 1 day rest. Texas Tech is the team that I'll be looking to fade with only 6 players deep in another competitive game.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia got off the bus, was like, holy crap, people have teeth here. So it was a little shocking for them to begin with. But we'll talk about a couple of these big top performers last night like we always do, guys. We try to throw some names each and every day. A lot of names you're starting to see over and over and over. And also some new names because come tournament time, this is some great information because you guys will certainly be hearing a lot of these names in a month from now, including listen, you played 97 quarters. If you're Maceo Jack and you play 57 minutes, your ass better be on this list, Ralph. I'm just saying right now, you better be able to make this top performers list because you played a full game more than anybody else.
Yeah, going back, we didn't comment on the last screen. The largest over-under yesterday was George Washington and Davidson. It went over by 77.5 points. Now, there were 4 asterisks, which means there were 4 overtime games, Joe, as you alluded to. It was over, though, prior to the first overtime, so it wasn't a bad beat like Drew had on a last-second shot. The game was over already, and then we saw them score another how many extra points. But you're right, yeah, when you're playing 60 minutes and everyone else is playing 40, you better score some points.
Yep. Mason Jones, Ed Croswell, LaSalle also. Louisville, though, there's that name again, Ralph, in Louisville. And taking down Boston College, 38 minutes, 37 points, 9 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal. And, Louisville is it's still a team, I think, certainly, that if we're not paying attention to, Drew, you need to start paying attention to Louisville at the right time, right place. They're going to be in really good form come March, that's for sure.
Yeah, and coming from the ACC conference, been tested at least, this year a little bit, I guess, watered down. But overall, I mean, able to beat Duke, like you said, just kind of wiping the floor with the mid to low tier ACC teams. They're on a pretty good run here since losing to Kentucky and Florida State back in early January. So I'm not looking to step in front of Chris Mack's team anytime soon.
No, especially the only guy on the list there, Ralph, that had an which means he was on the road. Rest of the guys were at home. So big game by Jordan there in Boston College. Good stuff. And, of course, guys, want to remind you, both plays are up, both at WagerTalk.com. Head over to the Cal Sports page there. And Drew's got a code for you here. And Drew 69, I believe, will get you a $69 7-day all-access pass to him at sportsmemo.com. Just take a look at the scroll, follow the links, guys, and you are there. And plays are up tonight. And speaking of tonight, before we take a look at the market here, see who's moving, who's shaking, Ralph, I know you are Mr. TNA, so let's talk a little trend and angle here, man. What do you got for us here today in these upcoming days?
Well, I'm about to post my plays when I get off this show, and I've gone back and forth if this is going to be a play or not. Illinois, Minnesota under. Let's remember the Minnesota Golden Gophers now 2-18-1 over under their last 21 road games, and one of those overs was against Purdue earlier this year. That game was under in regulation, went to overtime and went over. So in regulation, Minnesota would be 1-19-1 over under their last 21 road games. Winthrop is a team that has done awesome on the road. They've covered 11 straight games. Gonzaga, we know how good they are, the number one team, in most people's rankings. Baylor, obviously, in the AP. But the Zags, 14-2 over under their last 16 games. And UTSA, now 15-1 ATS at home their last 16 games. They started off this year probably my most disappointing team. 6 straight losses against D1 foes, all away from home. They're 8-0 at home this year, and again, a strong home team.
Couple of, and of course, guys, like we do each and every show, give you a couple of trends there. And Drew loves his totals when it comes to college hoops. So, each and every show here, we'll be bringing you as many of those situational trends, angles, totals, sides, whatever it is. If we think on the schedule there are some things that you guys need to know, believe me when I tell you, we will pass it along to you. And we always like to take a look at the market here over 60 games, try to see at this point in the day who's moving, who's shaking, what is the market telling us. And one of the games, Ralph, that stuck out to me here was a team I know you loved in the beginning of the season. We're talking about UTSA here. UAB is on their way. Now, UTSA opens up as a 5-point favorite in this, also at 147.5. That has also been bet down. I'm seeing 145s. But went from 5, Ralph, to 3.5, even a 3 or 2 out there right now. Now, UTSA was you were a big fan, a little disappointed early on. Have you come around on them at all? Because somebody don't like them.
Well, how about this? How about if I just jump ahead and say my best bet for today is UTSA?
How do you like that? How do you like we've been doing the show too long, Ralph. That's the problem.
We didn't talk about that, Joe, and it is one of my plays loaded up at WagerTalk today. And, I look at this UTA bunch. I just talked about how strong they are at home. Mm-hmm. You have the country's leading scoring duo at guards. The two guards, Jamon Jackson and Keaton Wallace, are averaging 44 points per game, 44.1, I think. And you're going up against UAB, which has 2 freshman guards. UAB struggling shooting under 43% the last 5 games. I don't think there's any way they can keep up with UTSA's offense at home. So, UTSA at home averaging 87.1 points per game. Home road dichotomy certainly in play, but they're on the right side of that dichotomy at home.
Another one here, too, and I know, Drew, you love your total, so this was a big total mover here so far this morning out on the West Coast. Cal State Fullerton taking on Cal Poly, guys, and it opened up at 130. It's already up to 137, and Cal State Fullerton opened up as it looks like a 1.5 point favorite, and now that's been pushed up to 3.5, so I don't know, Drew. That's a lot. That's a 6.5, 7-point swing in a total there this morning for Cal Fullerton and Cal Poly, and Cal Poly at home, by the way, in this one.
Yeah, I mean, anytime a total's moving more than 5 points, it's alarming. And to tell you the truth, Joe, that's one thing with college basketball. Sometimes if you don't pinpoint these teams early, you kind of miss those moves. So neither of these two teams I had circled. I'm not really sure. I can't tell you exactly why the move, though.
That's a lot of movement there, Ralph. I mean, Cal Poly, we faded them in the past, but Fullerton on the road, really?
I don't agree with the move. You have 2 offenses that rank in the 300s. So, we're not always right on every move, but obviously couple people hit that pretty hard to be jumping that much, no question.
And Stanford, too, guys, getting a lot of love right now tonight at home against Oregon State. Opened up as an 8. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, they're not getting love. The Oregon State Ducks are getting Oregon State Beavers, rather, getting the love. Stanford 8.5. It opens up. Another one of these totals, Drew, opened up at 135. It is down to 128, and I think we all agree, right? Stanford can certainly play at a snail's pace at home. They've been pretty good here, but 8.5 to 7, and that total from 135 to 128, Drew. That's also pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And anytime with college basketball, if you can find change and then going forward, I think you got a big advantage over the market, over the odds makers. And with Stanford, we've seen their possession marks since getting into conference play really drop. In fact, they had multiple games before they got into Pac-12 play where they were north of 70 possessions, heck, as high as 76 possessions in some games. And now just last game against Cal, down to 61 possessions. USC, the game before that game did go into overtime, so not sure how you want to factor that in. So yeah, you're right, the Cardinal doesn't move fast, and also the Beavers not fast at all, so I don't think there's going to be too many possessions. I agree with this move towards the under.
It's a big move, Ralph, but it is Stanford after all, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Stanford has an elite defense. I mean, Jared Haas has them playing great. The question is, Spencer Jones, their freshman, how is he going to do handling Trinkle? He's going to need some help, obviously, because the Oregon State's offense runs through the coach's son. So it's going to be De Silva and Jones both backing up on Trinkle. I agree with the line move. I thought it was too high. I mean, you have to throw out the Cal game because you're talking, Cal's such an anomaly because their offense is so bad for a Power 5 team with a decent defense and a very slow tempo.
All right, so it's going to be a great night. We got a couple of featured games here, guys, coming up that we will dive into. Maryland, Iowa, of course, being one of them. Pac-12, Arizona, and Washington. Will these two teams get it going in the right direction? But first, of course, we like to point out on a card tonight over 60 games, there might be a dog or two, guys, that have maybe caught our attention that we like to throw out there. And Ralph, I'll start with you. Of the over 60 games, what's the dog you circled here that you like the most?
Well, I guess it's a pretty cheap dog, and I hate to say a 1-point dog is a dog.
Here we go, Ralph and his pick'em. Come on, Ralph, go ahead.
But this, it's not as much a dog as this is the next best game that I left off my card. So for those that know, I mean, that's like money in the bank. If I sold my next play that I didn't release,
go ahead.
I'd have a great percentage. But it's Montana. You have the best team in the Big Sky, coming off an overtime loss at Weber, and Portland State has revenge, but Portland State is a weird team that has a 3/4 court press under Barrett Peary, and Montana just has guards that can beat that. You've got a junior and a senior, and Timmy Falls was playing great point guard, and I think Montana can break the press. When you break Portland State's press, you have an easy time beating them, and I think Montana will bounce back off that loss and show that they are the class of the Big Sky.
What about it, Drew? Is there a dog on the card tonight you had circled up on the card?
Yeah, Joe, I got a really ugly dog here.
Yes.
So if you're looking to get into deep doldrums of college basketball here, I'm going to go with Cal State Bakersfield. Yeah, near a 250 team here. And they're catching 10 in the hook, actually, which could be an important hook when you're taking a pretty ugly dog. And they're going up against the Aggies. I'm talking about the New Mexico State Aggies, Aggie up, and they're not going to be Aggieing up tonight. I think that Cal State Bakersfield stays within single digits here, mainly because Queen, their best player, talking about New Mexico State here, he was out last game, looks to be out tonight. So anytime kind of the top scorer, best player for a team, I'm always a little shaky on backing them. Cal State Bakersfield, not a good team themselves, but playing decently. I guess you could say some of their better basketball of the season, and I'm really stretching here, but you are catching 10.5. So Cal State Bakersfield plus 10 in the hook, Joe.
Love that. And along those same lines, I love this team to start the season. They went through the doldrums of January basketball here a little bit in conference play, but I know who I can't trust, and I cannot trust USC as a double-digit favorite, even at home, taking on a Utah team that certainly has been playing better as of late. They've won their last 2, albeit those were at home. They had lost 3 consecutive on the road there. But the truth is, they're 10-2 against the number in their last 12 against the Trojans. I've watched USC. I've lost money watching USC go ahead and just absolutely melt down and collapse there in games, especially late this season. I can't trust them to win by double digits. I think it's an overvalued number. I do think there's some value in taking the 9.5 points there and backing Utah, who at this point, they're 3-4 in conference, Ralph. They got to win. They got to win games on the road. They know this if they're going to bolster their resume to get into March. So to me, I like Utah tonight getting the 9.5.
Yeah, well, you're braver than I am, but Utah is a team I want to fade, but they did burn me last week by coming back against Washington in a horrific 5% loss. With USC, potentially, Reykjavik, probably is their best offensive player, but you have two players that are true freshmen, and that's why you have inconsistency.
Yep.
When you have a true freshman point guard and a true freshman backup point guard, you have some great games and you have some poor games, and that's exactly what you get with the Trojans. They're capable of beating anybody in the conference. And when those freshmen struggle, they're capable of losing to anyone in the conference.
Sounds a lot like their football team, Drew, doesn't it? Sound like USC. They should beat everybody. They should be undefeated every year. Well, you suck. You can't get the job done. So,
yeah,
I ain't talented. You double digits. Kiss my ass. Hell no.
Right. I mean, talented, you're right. But it brings me back to that Utah-USC game. I was on the wrong side of that one, and it seemed like every ball was going into the USC receiver's hands. But, heck, that's a different season, and football is now gone in college.
Do not trust them, but maybe you guys will trust. We got a couple of games here, marquee matchups. We'll spend a couple of minutes talking about here. We'll start in the Big Ten. Minnesota taking on Illinois. On paper, Ralph, this Big Ten showdown should be it should not even be close, right? You're talking about a 15-5 Illinois team, 19th in the country, taking on an 11-9 Minnesota team, right? You've got it looks like right now somebody's betting them big time here. It looks like on paper anyway. They've won 6 in a row. They're a short favorite here on their home court, being Illinois. They're 11-1 at home. Minnesota 1-6 on the road. But despite all this, Ralph, I saw it open at 5. Kind of still hanging around 5, 4.5, and 5. So there's a little bit of freeze here. So I don't know. Might this be the time that maybe we start fading Illinois in this game tonight?
Before I answer, Drew, let me clarify something for you.
Oh, no.
The email might have said we're going to talk Iowa, Maryland, but sometimes Joe just goes off on a tangent, and you just got to deal with it. Okay, so
I'm talking
you just
Minnesota,
smile at
Illinois.
whatever game he picks to talk
exactly. It's a
about.
better game. Iowa, Maryland. Maryland's going to win. They're at home. Next, go ahead. Minnesota, Illinois is to me because it's actually the most heavily bet game of the night right now. It's got the most action on it.
All right, well, let's talk about Illinois. You know
what? Let's go Iowa, Maryland. We'll hold that thought. No, I'm only kidding, Ralph. Go ahead. Go. To me, we're to the point of the season now where it's time for Illinois to prove themselves. I agree.
You're coming off a 12-win season. You have an experienced team. Your guards are juniors and seniors. Your bigs are underclassmen. But so far, your road wins are at Wisconsin. Wisconsin wasn't playing well. Against Purdue, home against Rutgers. Mm-hmm. At Purdue, which was going through a stretch, and at Michigan, which besides that 3 games in November, we know isn't the same team. So. To me, they are finally playing this game today, and then they have Iowa on deck Sunday, right, which will be a huge game. These are the games where the teams they're playing are finally playing well. So, I think Illinois gets it done, but Minnesota's a physical team. Mm-hmm. Arturo's a beast inside. And, while Minnesota's not huge, you got 6'4" guys. Marcus Carr is 6'2". It's a tall team that can get some steals. I lean Illinois. I think they get it done, but I clearly look to if Illinois is in a physical last-second win today, and Iowa is off a loss to Maryland, I think that sets up great for Iowa on Sunday back at home. Yep. Being able to press the pace against an Illinois team that doesn't want to play fast. And so to me, this is one of these games where no real opinion, lean Illinois, but hope those things occur to set up a game in the future.
I mean, Drew, Minnesota's got the value, right? I mean, if you're going to go contrarian tonight, take them on the road dog. The problem is all year long, taking road teams in the pack, in the Big Ten, you might as well just jump off the building. I don't know what to tell you, but in this particular case, you're right. If we're going to buy into Illinois, now would be the time to prove yourself. But Minnesota, listen, you're great at home. You're like 2 different teams, but do you trust them enough for you to back them and take the points?
Yeah, Joe, this is one of those situations where I'm kind of a little surprised by this number. I thought that the Illini would be a little bit more favored here at home. And the fact, when the number surprises me in a situation like this, I always go to free throws. Yep. But Illinois is still knocking down their free throws. So a late night, a late game foul fest, I think that they still can be in control here. It's two teams that I personally haven't been involved with a lot this season. And I know Minnesota is pesky. Their record isn't flashy, anything like that. They're not too flashy of a team overall, but it's not necessarily a team I'm looking to lay points towards. So like you, and also you mentioned, road teams in college basketball overall, especially in the Big Ten, it's like, it's like walking through a minefield betting on them. So it's really Illinois or pass for me. I just don't feel too confident in my number on both of these two teams.
Guys, the market is telling us that, listen, it's frozen. So while the public is hammering Illinois, the line's really not going anywhere. So there is definitely some, it appears, some sharp support from Minnesota. But listen, same thing holds true for the Iowa game, Ralph, which I'm reading from your email right now here, now that I bothered to open it up. You have Iowa's got to win. Iowa's on the road, and very much the same argument can be made. We keep talking about Iowa. You got to win on the road. I mean, at some particular point, Maryland, we know they can't win on the road, but they can win at home. So I think this is a huge game for Iowa in the sense where let's see what this team is really all about. Do you trust them on the road here to take down a Maryland team who has proven themselves at home to be a pretty worthy challenge?
I'm going to give you an updated record. This is Big Ten road teams this season in conference action. Ooh. Road teams are 16-50 straight up. They're actually 28-36, 43.8% against the spread with one push. So we have seen the road teams. To the start of January, right? They were like 4-10, but they went through a stretch there that, Northwestern covered against Illinois, Minnesota covered against Rutgers, Nebraska covered against Wisconsin, where it sort of evened out. In this game tonight, I don't know the answer to if Iowa can handle it on the road. I will say this. Iowa is a top 10 team as far as tempo is concerned at home. They're number 1 in the 70 range tempo on the road. So we know they have dynamic scoring. We know that Toussaint and Weiskamp and Garza are probably one of the top 3. You had McCaffrey in the mix there. If you had to take 3 offensive guys and you put them together, they could be as good as any 3 offensive players in basketball. But, I just think Maryland back at home is too good of a team. Maryland remembers that on January 10th, they went into Iowa and got their asses kicked. It was 38-24 at halftime, and that lead pretty much stayed the whole second half. Maryland shot 4 of 22 from three-point land, shooting 18%. Same season revenge to me for a team that I have as the better team at a reasonable number is something I always have to look at. So has me certainly leaning Maryland and the under.
What do you think? Drew? I mean, Maryland at home is, a great win, by the way, last week, coming back and winning there on the road in Indiana like they did, a 1-point victory. They were losing the whole way. They've shown a little moxie. They've been great at home. I mean, Iowa certainly has the talent to do it, but do you trust them to get it done?
I'm right with you. I mean, I think that the Hawkeyes are a team. I think they could win the national championship. I really do, Joe. I think they could be cutting down the nets at the end.
Yep.
And this is a year where, a team like that could really make a run, get hot at the right time, and sure enough, be the national championship. I think that this game, I would go at it from more of a totals angle. And like Ralph, that's a great kind of dissection there of the pace that Iowa's playing at home and on the road. I would use that here to point towards the under. It's something I haven't bet personally yet, but I'm going to look towards it after this show. I mean, when you look at the Terps, they've gone sub 60 possessions in 3 of their last 4 games, 56, 56, and 59 possessions just last game against the Hoosiers. They're not playing fast basketball at all. they're the home team. I tend to, who's going to control pace? I go with the more talented team. If it's close, I go with the home team. And Iowa's not pushing the pace on the road anyway. So I would look here towards the under in this Big Ten matchup, Joe.
I like that. Looking at the under, guys, and it's show me time, guys, especially in the Big Ten here in some of these matchups, and certainly in the Pac-12 tonight. It is definitely time to, get off the pot here, people. Arizona, Washington, two teams not been going well, guys, at all, and two teams that really need to. This is the point. You're kind of running out of space. You're looking at an Arizona team that lost their last game by 1 point to Arizona State, 66-65. They're 3-3 in conference play now. All three losses, guess what? Coming on the road. They have covered this spread just once, I'm seeing here, guys, this season in 8 road games. So Washington, on the other hand, they have been playing a much better overall season, but they are 2-4 in the Pac-12. They're riding a 3-game losing streak coming into this game. So something has got to give, guys. We've seen Washington prove to be a little bit more competitive at times. Arizona certainly, showed up, Ralph, early on in the season. There were a lot of whispers about this team, but it just hasn't panned out. But, something's got to give here tonight. Who do you trust more, the Washington team at home or Arizona?
Well, both teams I have followed closely. And you look at Arizona at 13-6. I'm going to say that their 6 losses are as good as any 6-loss team in the country. You lost to number 1 Baylor on the road by 5. Mm-hmm. You lost to the best team in college basketball, Gonzaga, at home by 4. You lost to a Johnny's team, which we know was playing well at times, by 3. You go to Oregon, you lose in overtime, and that overtime battle cost you your next game when you lost at Oregon State. And then what happens against your in-state rival? Well, I think Arizona State remembered that Arizona beat them back on January 4th, 75-47. And Arizona State got revenge. So I think there's value with Arizona. On the Washington side, Washington jumped out to a 10-2 record. The entire season went up in smoke when they lost their Kentucky transfer, Quade Green. Quade Green was playing point guard for him. He was clearly the leader of the team. He became academically ineligible when grades came out. What happens? They've gone 2-7 their last 9 games. They actually pulled the red shirt off. Ooh. Marcus Sohanis, he didn't play the first 14 games of the season. They were planning on redshirting him. He really started picking up his pace in practice. They played him 20-some minutes in the road games at Utah and Colorado. He is now getting his second start at home where I think he's going to be more comfortable. So, I think both teams have value. I think Arizona's the best 6-loss team, and I think Washington will get better. You got a couple bigs there that were 5-star recruits, and this is the team that had to rebuild. You lost 4 starters. You lost the Pac-12 Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. It's a big loss. So, one player made a huge difference for them. They're very happy with the progress of the point guard. Like I said, I had a big play on them against Utah, thinking that was the turn the corner after they lost to Oregon in overtime. They had a 5 or 6 point lead. They got a technical foul. They got a flagrant foul. Utah scored the last 6 or 7 points and ended up beating them by 1. And then playing that back-to-back games of Utah, Colorado, always tough. So I look for a very improved Washington team. But it's got me in the quandary that I'm not ready to pull the trigger on them, and I think there's a very quality Arizona team, which I'll be looking to play on coming down because you're getting some value because of their record.
Drew, I'm looking at the total here, opened up at 136.5. I'm seeing a lot of 133.5s, 134s across the board. It's a tough call. I mean, like Ralph said, though, Washington's resume, it started with losing to Baylor in Alaska, I think it was that game. And then, they've kind of held their own against some of the better stuff.
Washington beat Baylor, Joe.
Well, was that? That's right. It was right. It started with them beating Baylor. That's right. It was one of only Baylor's losses. And then
Baylor's only loss, yeah.
Yeah, but their resume it's good. I mean, if as good as losses can be, but Arizona, man, they started off hot, and now they find themselves here where they just can't cover, especially on the road. So Arizona's a tough team to want to be able to back here. Maybe the total's the way to look at it.
Yeah, that's funny. You're like Washington, Baylor, in Alaska, I believe.
Yeah, it wasn't in Alaska. I mean, it was in Alaska. When was the opening tip-off, I remember? It was.
Yeah, it was the first game of the
season, too, I think, right?
Yeah. So not sure how much to put into that. But, I mean, talking about Washington, like what Ralph said with Green going out, that was a huge blow to this team. He was a really good player. And as we know in college basketball, one player kind of means a lot. And it's shown here with the Huskies. That was a great find in terms of ripping off the red shirt with the new guard there. And they have played better, except they're just not coming out with wins. They were a huge under team, Washington. But if you've been betting them under for the last 6 or 7 games since Green's been out, like I have, you took it on the chin the last 2 games with 2 close calls to the over. So not sure how I feel about betting this under with Washington, getting back into bed with them, betting the unders, especially after this move towards the under, which we've seen each and every game since Green's been out off the opening number. Arizona, man, I can't figure this team out, Joe.
Nope.
Off the bat, they were hot, man, but it's like like your buddy who you like hanging out with, and he's just a drunk wild man, and you can't really trust him when you guys. I don't know. Arizona, I am staying away from them. I can't figure them out, and sometimes they come to play, and you want to be on them, beating Colorado, then they come back and lose to the Sun Devils, who I'm not too high on. So I just can't figure this team out. I'm likely going to stay away.
I want to jump in one more second, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm looking at their scoring. Like Arizona is one of the top scoring teams overall in the country, close to 80 points, Ralph, but and 65 points on the road. Like, what the hell is? It's like 2 different teams. It's 2 different worlds.
Well, a lot of us look at Ken Palm for our tempo numbers, and when you look at Washington, they're number 37 in offense, which means they press the pace, or they used to press the pace. But on defense, they're number 352. Why? Mike Hopkins is a Boeheim disciple. They have the same 2-3 zone. Teams struggle to get inside. They have more passes. So their tempo is number 176 combined. The last 4 games since Green's gone out, their tempo 351. Yep. They've completely slowed the pace down. And if you look at their amount of possessions, a little skewed, because in their last 5 games, 2 overtime games against Cal and Oregon, so you have to back those overtime possessions out as well.
Yeah, Drew, I'm with you. I just don't know what Arizona, the total scares me even more, because I don't know. Am I going to get that team that can score 80 points a game, or am I going to get the team on a run that scores 65 points? Like, that is right. It's such a crazy swing in numbers there that, I mean, granted, we're usually used to seeing teams score a little bit less on the road, but holy crap. I mean, that's 65 to 80, guys. Dude, it's not hard to figure out that that's probably a total that you stay away, but judging what we've seen so far in college hoops, it doesn't look like you can go wrong with the home team here at such a small number. So it is best bet time here, guys, unless, Ralph, you have come up with a situational here you didn't share with us that you're holding in your back pocket or that I haven't read in this email?
Yeah. I do. It's a system I found, and again, the difference between system and angle. System's any team that applies that goes this, and I'm going to ask you guys. Same season revenge. This time, though, you lost the first game of the season. In the second game of the season, you're a home dog between 3.5 and 9. So, not a small home dog, not a huge home dog, in that middle home dog role. And you've lost your last 3 games. So, 3 scenarios. You're on a 3-game losing streak. You have revenge for a previous loss. And you're a mid-size home dog. Good record, bad record.
Drew?
Just because you're asking the question, I would say good record, but I don't know.
I'm thinking good record, too.
145 and 242, 37.5%.
Good record.
So, yeah, people think, there's often think revenge. Mm-hmm. Just because you lost the first game does not mean you have revenge. If the other team was better than you and the other team's still better than you don't have revenge just because you lost. You are just playing another opponent that beats you again, and they're the better team this time. So again, that goes all the way back to 2008. So we are talking an 11-year period with multiple games a year, a 37.5 against the spread record, and 2 games tonight. So we'll see what happens, and we'll talk about them tomorrow. This system says tonight to fade James Madison and fade Western Illinois. So we'll talk about the system again tomorrow, see how those 2 teams did. And I'm going to leave best bets to you because, as I told you guys, when you asked me about UTSA, I can't give a stronger best bet out than a game that I already bet, that a game that I released at WagerTalk as a 3% play, and a game that went to my all-access customers. So, Drew, for your inaugural best bet on the tip-off show,
talk to me.
What does Drew have?
All right, guys, I'm going some late night special here, late night degenerate special, 10:30 Eastern tip-off, CBS Sports Network, by the way, a watch and win opportunity here. Talking the Zags.
You sick bastard. I knew it.
Yeah, just going to lay it with them. Lay it with the Zags, I'm telling you guys. -16 if you can find it. -16.5 if we're taking widely available numbers. They're going up against Santa Clara. Yes, it is a road game, but like the same type of profile. Now, granted, I don't know if I'd throw in the 3 losses for Santa Clara. Actually, I definitely wouldn't because they haven't lost their last 3 games. But still, the Zags beat down Santa Clara just, about a week ago, 104 to 54. They won by 50 points. They're the more talented team. I would get revenge out of your head, and I think that the Zags go in and clobber Santa Clara. I would lay the points, lay the 16 if you can find it.
Wow.
I'm going to just make a quick comment on that, Drew. I will say this. I have followed Santa Clara closely. I've been on them multiple times this year. They have 5 returning starters.
Yes.
Herb Sendek has done a fantastic job. To me, they are clearly the 3rd best team in the West Coast Conference. And I can tell you that if you remember that first Gonzaga game back on January 16th, the Zags won 104-54. It was probably the worst spot Santa Clara could be in because Santa Clara went to St. Mary's and pulled the upset. So what happens if you're a Zag player? You are watching this up-and-coming team that's very good, and you know that in their last game they pulled off an upset at St. Mary's, so they had the entire attention of that Zags lineup the first time. Part of the reason, again, it was a 50-point win. The Zags had to, I believe, truly feel like they had to put them in their place so they know who the king of the hill is.
And it's funny, there's only a couple of, there's not a whole lot that you can be guaranteed here, Drew, in college hoops, but 2 things I always count on. The Zags covering in the first half of their games and the over. And it's been absolutely money all year long. So take a look at the numbers, guys, in the first half for the Zags. But I'm with you. I think it's way too many points in the long run over there. The Zags, to me, I don't see anybody else beating them this year. Is there anybody in the conference that can beat them? Is there anything left on the schedule that can beat them? I don't think so, right?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean,
so what, 2 losses?
BYU maybe, but no, I don't think they lose. St. Mary's maybe. I think the Zags run the table. I think San Diego State runs the table.
I think they're there, yeah. Apps 2 losses all year?
If BYU gets Childs back, and he's playing to the level he was, that's potential. Childs has played 9 games. He had a wrist injury. He's been out since January. Well, you know what?
Is it thumb or
Childs came back.
Childs was back last game. Yeah, he was back last week.
He did in that San Francisco loss. I did not realize that they lost with Childs playing. So, BYU I think would be their closest. I have BYU actually higher than St. Mary's.
St. Mary's has got a game tonight too, so it's going to be interesting to see as well. I mean, they've missed St. Mary's under. Yeah, we watched them score 100 points this year. We're like, what the hell is going on with college basketball? Like, St. Mary's is scoring 100 points, Drew. What did we miss here, man? It's like watching paint dry, St. Mary's. Seriously? Oh, my God.
4 overtimes, Joe.
Tomato. Don't confuse the issue there, Ralph, damn it. 100 points is 100 points from a grandmother team there. It's unbelievable. All right, so we got Ralph's UTSA, guys. You know that. Also want to remind you guys that Drew over at sportsmemo.com, when we get it up there for you. 7-day full access pass, every one of his plays, guys, right now. Drew69 at checkout. That's Drew69. We'll give you access to every one of his plays for 7 days, and it's going to be a hell of a game. I'm looking, guys, give me the Buffaloes, man. I'm going Colorado. I'm back to fading UCLA. I know, Ralph, that we spent a couple of days thinking maybe they turned no, give me Colorado at home against UCLA. It's a short number. It's only 5.5 points. I love Colorado at home. I think they'll be able to get the job done. Not to mention UCLA 3-8 against the spread in their last 11 overall. Give me the Colorado Buffs by double digits.
Good to go by me.
Love it. Let's do it, guys. Make sure you get over to WagerTalk.com. Ralph's play is up. Don't forget, it's up every day, guys, as well as SportsMemo.com with Drew Martin. Make sure you're following Drew Martin at Drew Martin Bets on Twitter. Also at Cal Sports LV on Twitter. Always great information coming out from both these guys all week long. Make sure you get there. Like this video. Hit that little bell in the upper right-hand corner. Get notified every time we do one of these stupid-ass shows and go live. But more importantly, come back tomorrow because we'll break all of these games down, and we'll get ready for, 190 games on Saturday, Ralph? Is that what's happening?
Yep. We'll talk to you guys in 23. Drew, great having you on the show, guys. Drew's going to be joining us most days now and become a regular on there. So just adding more content to what is a great show.
That's right.
Anything you guys want to see, remember, just reach out to us. Reach out to Twitter, any one of us. And if there's anything we're missing that you want us to talk about, we are happy to make adjustments on the fly.
That's right. And I can tell you right now, if you're on the East Coast and things don't go well at the 7 o'clock games, he's the West Coast degenerate player, man. When I tell you he's going to have you all set up for the West Coast games, guys, you are going to have it all squared away. Drew's got you covered. It will be a winning night when it's all said and done. So good luck with the plays, guys. Come back and join us tomorrow. Drew, Ralph, be good, guys. Talk to you tomorrow, man. Good luck.
Peace, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.